Welcome to Keep Going, a podcast about failure and success, hosted by John Biggs. Every week, we talk to an amazing person about a time they failed and what they learned. And remember, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Welcome back to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. Today on the show, we have Tanya Cohen. She's the CEO of Made by Us Studios. Welcome, Tanya. I think you're the second studio head that we've had on here, so I'm very excited. I love hearing about creative folks.
Thank you. So nice to meet you. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah. So tell us about Made by Us.
Made by Us is the first creator Hollywood studio. It's a term that we've actually trademarked. And we are here to build the bridge between Hollywood and the creator economy. We're powered by my partner, Leanne Paris's management company, Made by All, which is one of the largest creator economy management companies in the business. Leanne started Made by All in 2017. And we represent some of the biggest creators in the industry, top YouTubers, TikTokers, meta creators. And across the stack of creators, we reach over 2.5 billion followers. So we have some of the biggest media rails online. And we've now partnered up with our creators to launch the very first premium content studio, to work side by side with our creators, to make premium long form scripted series and also films with the creators, bringing some of the best resources of Hollywood. That's the world I've come from. The best writers, directors, crews, storytellers to the creators, where we can then make premium content with them inside of their media rails or films that we'll actually take to theaters and distribute globally.
Okay, so I think we have two parallel lines of questioning. I think a lot of the audience is wondering how the heck can they gain attention in a world where, creators have kind of perfected it. So it'd be really helpful to discuss that. And also, how can you use creators to assist in marketing? Obviously, journalism is pretty much dead for all intents and purposes, and creators, be it tech, politics, culture, health, they're the folks who are actually getting eyeballs and getting attention. So let's go two parallel things. So how can folks get more attention when it comes to this, and then also how can you optimize and how can you use, I guess, KOLs, I guess you would call them, to help folks in terms of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think for a very long time, people thought creators were just marketing channels.
Uh-huh.
And there's a difference between a creator and an influencer. And I really want to get clear on the two. Creators are artists themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They create content. They're writer, director, actors who are very singular, who've nurtured a very deep, authentic relationship with an audience and community. And a lot of them have made content, whether it's sketch comedy, in the case of Kane Parsons or Curry, Barker, horror genre, short films, but they're storytellers. And the best creators are the most impactful. They aren't building audiences. They're building ecosystems. They own IP. They launch products. They sell tickets. They create films, televisions, podcasts, live experiences, consumer brands. But they're about community. And they're becoming these vertically integrated entertainment companies with a human being at the center instead of a corporate logo.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's done is, if you will, like the next Disney, Pixar, A24 may not begin as a studio. It might actually begin with a creator holding a camera in their bedroom. And I think creators, where you talk about marketing in the traditional system, and for a long time, yes, Hollywood has come to creators to help propel and market films, series, or even, advertisers, brands, products, right? And it's been very effective because they have a very deep inbuilt audience and community. And there's a trust built in when they get behind a product, believe me, trust me, I'm advocating for this. And they are seeing the impact of that, where the audience, the consumer is actually, there's a transactable. And I think that's why you're seeing, the economic shift from advertisers and now, media consumers to creators, where the spends are moving into these ecosystems because the community and the audience that they've built are such a deep rooted and authentic relationship with them that it's incredibly impactful. These creators talk to their audiences every single day. They launch videos. They get direct feedback. They're in constant communication with their fans. And so a lot of the times they can anticipate what people want. They know what's trending. And advertisers, because, you get the data and the insights, with YouTube and TikTok and Meta, and the advertisers or the brands can see who the audience is that's following the creator. You can actually get very precise and use it in a very impactful way to target, a creator to get behind a certain campaign, because you're programming to their audience, to their demo, who's engaging with them on their channel. So it's a much more effective and precise way of reaching and drawing in a consumer or an audience into a piece of content. And I think you're seeing a lot of marketing spends for traditional now move into digital, into creators for that very reason.
How do you actively separate the idea of the creator versus the influencer, right? I mean, I think the biggest question is like we could say like a Marcus Brownlee would be a creator, right? Technically, he would be a blogger back 20 years ago, and now he's become sort of it's a video blogger sort of thing. And the vast majority of consumer electronics folks would love to have their thing focused on by him. How do you separate that idea of the influencer who basically says this supplement or buy this weird gadget versus somebody like him who's, for all intents and purposes, being something that existed before, which was kind of like a tech TV show kind of thing, but in a different medium?
Every creator can become an influencer, but not every influencer can become a creator.
Mm-hmm.
An influencer's, if you will, primary business is influencing purchase decisions or attention. Their product is often a personal brand. Brands pay them because they have reach and credibility in a category, like a beauty category or something of that nature, with an audience. Whereas a creator is building intellectual property. They create original worlds, characters, stories, formats, ideas, communities that have value beyond any one platform. And their audience isn't just following them, they're coming back for what they make, right? And brands come to the creator and a lot of time give them creative authorship over its sponsored video. So it might be a T-Mobile, campaign. But the creator, if they're a sketch comedy creator, is making a sketch comedy video that might just happen to feature T-Mobile, but it's authentic to the voice of that creator and it's entertainment, it's content. And I think that the distinction, if you will, is ownership and IP. The influencer kind of rents attention, but the creator kind of builds an asset and brings the brand or the product into a story that's more integrative, that's connecting with the consumer in a very different way. In some way, I think in a more powerful way. I think you look at the Forbes list and the economics of how much creator versus influencer are even earning from brands. I think you're seeing it much heavily weighted towards the creator than the influencer. And I would say the reason being is the power of story. Story as a gateway to people's emotions. Turn a consumer into a fan, they buy more product. Right? You connect with them in a different way. And I think that's just the power of a creator, putting a brand in a story versus just influencing or, promoting something, endorsing something.
What's the low-hanging fruit in terms of becoming a creator? What's the I don't know, best practice to get started?
Authenticity. I think audiences are now almost loving the rawness and lo-fi-ness of creator content. It's almost beautiful. It almost feels more like you're in the world with the creator. You know them. There's not that overly polished, produced feel and look. So the resources of creation, the barriers for entry are actually low. And with now AI, there's a lot of AI slop, but I think as a tool to enable a creator to make content cheaper, but let their imagination carry them is extraordinary. And I'm so excited to actually see, I believe we're just on the beginnings of a massive creative revolution where all these brilliant, authentic, talented, singular voices all over the world will start coming online. And I believe the best practices are really discovering and defining your authenticity and your singularity. What makes you you? What's authentic to you? What's your voice? How do you refine that? And it's a voice that only you truly can create, that comes from you. And when it is really deeply authentic, you feel that. It's like a frequency, you feel that. And I think the creators that succeed or get that virality very fast are ones that create a format, but it's very true to their voice and their talent. and their skill, and it's coming from them. And I would say it's a different format or form than it being a, traditional Hollywood screenwriter or director or performer or comedian. But in some way, it's the same thing. It's talent showing up authentically, doing uniquely and singularly the thing that they do best. And whatever your passion is, lean into that. There's an amazing creator from Africa, Kaluputek, who's just exploded this year, with hundreds of millions of views out of nowhere from Uganda. And this creator was a young fashion designer who was taking, items from his village and making these unbelievably brilliant, outfits that are just bespoke and high fashion, and it's Met Gala stuff, and putting himself on video, 2-minute little videos of here what it was before, here's what it was after. And he took the internet by storm. But the guy is just so talented and is just making these designs that you've never seen before. And his sheer form of his unique singularity and brilliance is what's resonating. It's just blowing audiences globally away. And I think that's really the thing. And anybody can do it with an iPhone and the internet. Anybody can become a creator.
What is someone like you looking for when it comes to representing somebody new?
A lot of times, with our roster, my partner Leanne has got a really high level curated list of creators. And for the most part, most of our creators are content creators. So we don't really necessarily only really represent influencers.
Well, yeah.
They're really...
But at what point is somebody's YouTube channel interesting to you folks?
It's really about engagement. It's not just about followers anymore. It's really about engagement. I think that's a metric that, brands, advertisers are really paying attention to, that really is driving an ecosystem. So it's not about followers. And with our strategy, we can really amplify somebody's follower reach and engagement. But we really look for, the videos, how are they performing and consistently, not just a one-hit wonder, but are they being consistent? And are they disciplined about how often they're posting and creating? That's their job. They're showing up every day like one shows up at the office. If you're a creator, you have to create. And the algorithm rewards that. Consistency, but consistency and voice and vision and understanding form and format and knowing how to make something engaging that people are engaging with, and looking at those metrics are very key and important to us so that we know we have a business that we can contribute, adding value to.
And you consider a solo creator to a degree similar to, I don't know, a website or a TV channel or a movie studio to a degree, right?
They're media networks. Creators are the new media networks. Some creators, like some in our ecosystem, have billions of views a month in their channels. They're CBS, NBC, Fox combined. They're global. There's no borders and boundaries to who can watch their content. It's not regional. It's for the most part global. So these creators have amassed their media networks. And even though a lot of them were birthed from being a singular creator, some of them, like, Dhar Mann, who's now a studio, right? And he's a media conglomerate. Dhar Mann Studios, he's programming in his ecosystems, but it's not just starring him. And I think we're going to see more of that, occurring. That's exactly why we launched Made by Us Studios, to give creators the tools, resources, financing, and now we're adding a layer of P&A and marketing to help supercharge, formats and channels in order to reach global audiences and programmatically help creators, expand their content offering to their audiences and communities, so that they're not just delivering one piece of content, but it could actually be like network television, many different verticals existing in one ecosystem.
Okay. So let's go back to the idea of marketing with these folks. I understand you've explained very precisely, and actually this is really, really helpful, the difference between these folks and like the traditional influencer Instagrammer who like goes to a restaurant and says, wow, look at these, I don't know, baked clams. How do you interact with those folks? How do you market with those folks if you do want to get attention, like a T-Mobile or somebody smaller, like an entrepreneur?
I mean, I think you have to be really specific about, who are you looking to reach and what is the brief and the directive, and really get precise about the alignment with a creator so that it feels on brand and on values for the brand and for the creator. Looking at some creators' audiences, some of them will skew younger or more family, and they are not right for a alcohol brand or whatever that is, right? It's not, in alignment. I think a lot of it with my partner Leanne and representing the creators is getting really dialed in on the value system of the creator and their audience and the value system of the brands, and aligning both. And really, how do we work with a brand to show up in culture in more authentic ways that are powerful for the brand? And when you can match the two, the result is really powerful and very effective. We just had Cannes Lion. I think that was really the line in the sand where every major CMO and executive was there, and the shift was very clear that a lot of those premium dollars are actually going towards underwriting content and storytelling and creators, because it's a more effective way of reaching an audience and really connecting with people. And perception of a brand, how it can be shaped through story. You look at a show like White Lotus, what it did for the Four Seasons Maui, right? It changed that whole ecosystem for that brand off the heels of a very cool show, and so a brand or a show or story can be a gateway for a brand to show up in a different way or entirely change their perception for the consumer. A bit of an older legacy brand that might have reached an older demo that generationally isn't as connected to a millennial Gen Z, but they want to perceivably be cool or interesting or have a comeback, can reach a consumer in a really unique new way through storytelling and through a creator that really reaches that audience in a way that audience really resonates and connects with. And that brand showing up with that creator can be very effective for that brand.
What happens to the Super Bowl ad spend? What happens to, I don't know, New Year's Rockin' Eve or whatever, in terms of when that ad spend moves over to creator? How is that represented? How is that represented? Instead of everybody watching the same thing, how do you kind of like grab a mass audience to see, I don't know, one campaign, something huge?
Really great question. The Super Bowl is never going to disappear. It's a funnel to get, as long as people showing up to watch it, it'll always be a powerful funnel, and the dollars will always follow the engagement and the eyeballs. But it's definitely becoming distributed, that's for sure, and decentralized. I think a lot of that money is potentially over time going to get dispersed in different buckets. For decades, brands really had, if you will, one opportunity to capture everyone's attention at the exact same moment. So why a single 30-second, Super Bowl commercial became worth $8 to $10 million before production costs. And today, culture doesn't really gather as much in one place. There are still the big tentpole cultural moments where that occurs, but it kind of is gathering a bit more now around thousands of creators, and the fences are down. There's content everywhere now, and it's becoming more premium. You used to have a moat of legacy media or an SVOD rail to reach the audience with something more premium. Now with technology and social media and now verticals and all these new methods of storytelling and creators, the fences are down and there's content everywhere. Now it's the fight for attention. Who will win, right? And I think instead of advertisers really buying one interruption during one event, we might see brands now become part of hundreds of conversations that audiences have voluntarily chosen to participate in. And the budget won't disappear. It just might get redistributed. I think about, instead of one $10 million commercial, a brand might actually decide, you know what, we'll invest 50 across 100 creators. We might see some of them take that swing and see for them if it's more effective. Instead of reaching a broad audience, once it reaches highly engaged communities repeatedly, might be more effective for brands. Instead of measuring impressions, brands can measure sales, engagement, conversation almost instantly. I think live shopping is going to really change that, right? Where you'll have, TikTok shop and potentially watching a vertical, but then buy the t-shirt or around a creator, the shoppable aspect of the creator economy and where that's moving to and how people are buying and consuming and where that economy's moved to. I think you might see a lot of spend moving around that because it's all about the fastest, method to the consumer to buy your product. So I think the economics might become a little bit more efficient, I think the really exciting evolution is what happens after that. The biggest opportunity isn't creators making commercials. I think it's creators becoming the entertainment in some way. And I think, it's imagine a major consumer brand, they're going to start to finance comedy series and films and animated franchises. We recently closed a very big deal and announced it at Cannes Lion, our partnership with Dentsu for this very reason, because we saw the shift coming. And, the brand isn't really interrupting the experience anymore. It's making the experience possible, right? It's beautiful. And it's closer to how studios have historically been financed than traditional advertising, So I think we're increasingly seeing marketing budgets evolve into content investment budgets, potentially, right? I think Cannes Lion was an indicator of that, where they're not just going to sponsor culture, they want to help create it. and creators becoming the bridge between the commerce and entertainment because they have something that's incredibly difficult to buy. It's trust.
Mm-hmm.
So in the future, I don't think we'll ask like who bought the Super Bowl ad. I think we might ask who created the cultural moment that everybody's talking about.
How do you ensure that that trust is maintained? I mean, there's obviously an ethical line when it comes to specific reportage, if you want to call it that. But I mean also creativity. Like, I don't want to be kind of like putting like Advil in the middle of my movie because somebody sponsored us. How do you maintain that trust when you also do have to product place occasionally?
Trust is the only asset a creator cannot afford to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And once it's gone, no algorithm or marketing budget can buy that back. It's free to follow a creator. You could just unfollow, right? So authenticity has to come before monetization. And if a partnership doesn't genuinely fit the creator's values or audience, the short-term paycheck sometimes isn't worth the long-time erosion of that trust.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guardians of these creators, like my partner Leanne, they take this very seriously with the creators and the alignments. And the audience has to receive value, not just the brand, right? The best integrations entertain, educate, solve a problem. People feel like they're watching an ad kind of disguised as content. If people, feel like, again, if you feel like you're watching an ad sort of disguised content, you lose trust. I think a lot of brands are recognizing that. And so they're giving creators freedom within boundaries, obviously with the values of the brand. And there's a brief, but they're giving them freedom to create the video that the creator knows they will trend and be viral and be cool and funny. They're not prescribing the creator and saying, hey, directing them too much. I think in the old advertising world, right, you get the brief, you have the director, and you'd kind of direct the commercial, and it was a commercial. But now the commercial in some ways almost, I'd say dying, but evolving because the creator gets the brief from the brand, but the creator then creates the content and the brand there's this trust building, and the creators that understand this, they're getting more money from the brands because they're very effective at this, but they make something that is true to the creator's voice and what the audience expects, and the consumer doesn't feel like they're being sold to, but the brand's showing up in a way that the consumer isn't icked out by. It doesn't feel like an ad. And that's this fine line. And I think the best creators, and you look at, again, Forbes list and the ones that are making the most money from those integrations are doing this the very best. And, I think trust extends beyond brand deals. It influences how we develop entertainment. And we don't start by asking, how do we maximize, revenue? We start by asking, what story does this creator genuinely want to tell? And if the audience falls in love with that story, the business opportunities kind of follow naturally. So how do you kind of work with the brand? It's trust is earned. So it's like, how do you work with the brand and their brief and their, directives with the creator and match the two? And that's the beauty. And that's what we're seeing form here with these creators.
I think there's a deep historical analog with the early, you could say, radio shows and also even TV shows. I mean, that's where the soap operas came from, right? Each one was sort of a singular creator. You had like, I don't know, Jack Benny or whoever was like the person that everybody loved. Where does all of this go? Does it follow the same idea where those individuals like a Jack Benny or I don't know, Gracie or whoever, where it become part of a studio system, which leads to what we have today? Does that studio system break down and create these individuals who eventually band back together to create a new studio system? Or what do you think happens there?
Well, you're exactly why we formed Made by Us. We saw the shift happening. I almost say we're living in the ancient future. We're not rewriting the playbook. We're actually just remembering. We're studying the 70s and the times of United Artists. And when artists actually own their IP, their work, their relationship with an audience. I firmly believe in this new world with decentralized distribution, where the veil between the audience and the content is very thin now, that every authentic artist who's very singular can actually become their own media company, right? Because the audience knows, a Ridley Scott movie is a Ridley Scott movie. You know what that is, And the creators have done this and they've built this and proven that. And now it's about bridging what does legacy Hollywood do with that, right? When they are very singular, but they're railed by a different distribution system and monetization system. We built Made by Us to model the more United Artists model of distribution and monetization for the creator and for the studio. That's our promise to our creators. We have a business model because the platforms don't own the IP, the creators do. And by virtue of us financing the content, the studio does. How do we make sure we give back IP ownership and back end and data to the creators and create that new United Artists business model that exists, and also that old network television syndication license business model that buoyed the industry for generations, that led to, a vibrant economic backbone of the industry, network television. You look at network TV upfronts, we're now YouTube, the YouTube upfronts, and you're seeing that paradigm shift where the ad dollars are going now into this new ecosystem. I mean, YouTube's Q1, 10 billion, up 10. That's not by coincidence. That's where the attention is. And the media dollars go there. That's where, the economic shift, that's where you can make more premium content. And the more premium the content, the more the spends will go there. And it's global spends. And the data is very precise to those advertisers. And so I think that I'm very excited about this moment. It's exactly why we launched Made by Us. And we have an ecosystem of some of the biggest creators with some of the biggest distribution rails that we can then make content with those creators, but also help launch new formats and channels by leveraging some of those creators and building up new ecosystems and supporting new voices and building up new media rails. And then also helping legacy artists who don't have ecosystems build up their ecosystems and use our, the way the algorithm works. It's not Netflix. You don't program the front page. The algorithm is sacred. I love that about the algorithm, actually, because it's about engagement. It's about where the audience attention eyeballs and the algorithm pushes and promotes you organically based on those metrics. And they're not programming the front page, but you have to discover something. You're seeking it out. You're choosing to watch it, if you will, in a YouTube ecosystem, if you will. And so I actually believe that we potentially are going to come back to an economic model and business model whereby it's going to be more empowering for creatives and creators. And they're going to have the ability to create enterprise value around their IP and have a much deeper and direct relationship with their audience and their community. So when IP resonates, buy the lunchbox, buy the toy, buy the t-shirt. You could do it on channel. It's right there. Audience is right in front of you. You could talk to them. And I see that with the creators. Sorry.
Is there ever the expectation that somebody ends up they're on YouTube first and then they kind of syndicate over to Netflix? Is that something that you've been seeing?
Look at Bluey, Peppa Pig, look at Coco Melon.
Fascinating.
Look at Miss Rachel and Blippi, and legacy media now licenses YouTube content, right? I mean, even looking at an example, it wasn't on YouTube, but Suits had a second run on Netflix. It crushed. It was older content, but it found a new audience. And so I think that you're going to potentially bring back, and that's our business model, bring back licensing and syndication revenues, which are wonderful for everybody involved who made the content, for the creators. And so we're not redesigning the business model. We're just remembering what really worked in a new way where it's digital. And you have these new talents that got these inbuilt infrastructure, audience, and community. And how do you work with that to create that business model again for content distribution and monetization and syndication and licensing?
Well, this is fascinating. I feel like we did a little bit inside baseball here, but I think for my interests, I think this was an amazing thing. And I think that your specific delineation between the influencer and the creator, I think, is super helpful. I think that's going to be helpful for folks, because folks are basically saying, here, why am I spending $1,000 somebody on YouTube here? Well, let's see what they produce, how much trust they have, etc. And folks like you can actually help us understand that.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Right. So where can folks find you? Made by All / Made by Us is the website for you guys.
Our Instagram handle @MadeByAll, @MadeByUs, and me @TansCohen, TANZCOHEN. And you can LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn. You can write to us.
All right.
And we'd love to hear your ideas and projects. We're going to be making vertical microdramas. We're going to be making premium long-form scripted serialized television and movies. Right. And we're excited to do all of it. And we'd love to work with brilliant new talents.
So we'll send a bunch of creators your way and you'll vet them, right?
Absolutely. We have the infrastructure and resources to help them make premium content.
All right. Tanya, thank you for this. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Wonderful to meet you, John.
This has been Keep Going. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Remember, Keep Going is entirely listener supported. If you're listening to this, please head over to keepgoingpod.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast for as little as $5 a month. This is a labor of love, and every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.
Pacing back and forth for 27 months. I wouldn't have known how to love myself if you didn't break my